All right, so, good? All right, so time is 5:31 on September 25th, calling the Woodman Hills Metro District Board meeting to order. Roll call. Kelsey.
Kelsey Harris present.
Troy Stinson present.
Good.
Sanford Rogers present.
Wayne Kresmian present.
D.P. Popovich present.
There she is. Director disclosures?
No additional disclosures.
No additionals, great. Approval or disapproval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries, but agenda's approved. Welcome remarks. If we can stand for the pledge. Say where to go.
Over there?
No, that's Colorado one.
Stand by. Technical difficulties.
Is there another copy of the printed agenda?
No.
No.
If you like them printed, Carter will print them for
No, I
you.
mean, I got it electronically.
Okay, yeah,
so-
some people just don't like release the paper because you know how much we pay for it, but I like having it printed.
Hey, there we go.
Wow.
There we go. There we
Where's the
go.
flag? Somebody get it?
All right. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Second. Any public comments? Residents? Okay. For the consent agenda. I have to read that one, right, don't I?
You don't have to read this
Okay.
one in full, no.
So for the consent agenda, kind of with what we had talked about last meeting and we had conversed about from our directors for each of the entities, do we have any things to report that would be affecting the community?
So that's for you guys, so if there's anything in your reports that you would like to bring out and discuss with the board, then this is the time to let the board know before they approve the consent agenda. So, does anybody have anything they want to pull out?
It's going to include all the, like the water issue that's happening for Wally's area. Is that considered in the consent agenda?
It's on his report, so then yes, that's true, but in executive session, we will be talking about 26 budget,
Okay,
which is also related to that.
okay.
So you're gonna hear what's going on. So essentially, you don't need to pull it out unless you want to have that in public, because that conversation is gonna be done in executive.
Do you feel like our community needs to be aware of that conversation? Because I hate for them to request this information and then have to wait for it. You guys know how I feel about this.
I would say the one thing is if it needs to come down to a vote for anything, it has to come out of executive for us to vote on it. So most of the executive would just be informational based, where if we need to vote on something where it's gonna affect the community on that side, then it will come out, we have to come out of executive session back into public forum to vote
Since
on
we're
it.
not in executive session, do we want our enterprise directors to discuss problems in their area so that our community is aware?
The biggest one that we had talked about, I had talked to Carter after our conversation, was that if we have something that's directly impacting the community, to bring that out, so that out of the consent agenda, so that they are aware of it, and it's brought to, do we need to wait for Stacy to come back?
No, she's on.
Okay.
It's just my connection to this.
I'm here.
Gotcha. So it was, if anything affects the community or the public on our delivery of services, that would be brought out, so it was brought up in public forum out of the meeting.
Was the 471,000 gallons discussed last board meeting that we lost?
No, that was a main break that happened
Yeah, I
Can you
don't,
tell me a little bit more about that?
from the previous meeting. Yes,
please.
it was a west tank line that failed.
Okay. Is this And I'm assuming this is an issue that doesn't typically happen. Have we
It
made,
should not have happened. It's a
Okay.
brand new line.
perfect. Have we made steps to ensure that, likely, hopefully will never happen again?
Can't guarantee it
Okay.
because of installation issues.
What kind of warning system did we get for that?
You don't.
You just it was just called in?
We get a pressure loss in our system. It's governed by SCADA. Usually that's the first sign of warning. And then at this point, you're reactive to try to get to the location where the main break had happened. And so when I get those alarms, it's usually in the upper end. We're out there driving, trying to find what it is, where it is. And then we get that effectively shut down. So there is quite a bit of time that goes into
Gotcha. How
shut
much?
it down.
How much time? Because I know it happened at the worst possible time. But how much
Yeah.
time was it?
1 in the morning.
I know, that's horrible.
And
It's the worst
You're
time.
getting out of bed, you're getting dressed, and you have a 30-minute response time.
Gotcha.
A lot of water can be going through that pipe very quickly.
How did your team do? Were they pretty responsive and
Yes,
just want to pat them on the back if they were just doing a really great job and really responsive and was available. Because I can assume getting a call at 1 a.m. would have been frustrating, but I'm happy to hear that your team rallied together for that. So that makes me
so
happy.
usually it's an on-call person, they get some alarms as I do, I get all the alarms, so everybody rotates me on call. I'm always on call because of the position I hold, so.
Gotcha. Perfect. I don't think there's any other questions, as long as we're gonna cover that in executive session for Wally's area.
All right, so if there's no other questions, for a motion to approve the consent.
Motion to approve.
I have motions. I have a second. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries, consent agenda is approved. Moving down, state of the district water portfolio presentation.
Real fast. We're excited to get to you, John.
Yeah. And you just gonna run the slides, Art? I'm gonna hand out a couple of things, because there's a few graphs that I think they show up pretty well there, but you may or may not be able to see, so I'm gonna hand these down and pass them all the way around. So if you can't quite see it on the, when we get there, on the screen, why, you can kind of take a look at it, and here's the other one. So when we get there, I'll let you guys kind of pass these around up and down. I'm probably a little short, so if you need, people may need to flip them together.
John, these are already in there, right? Or
These are already in there, but the reason I gave you those is, like I said, some people may not be able to see the screen really clearly, because some of the graphs are a little lighter and have a little bit more detail on them, if you know what I mean. So, the first time we did this was in 2014, and I think my last presentation was in 2020, but Carter thinks it was 2022, so.
Troy said 22.
Troy, okay, so I'm going with you guys.
Troy never forgets who it is.
And that's probably true, because I'm way older than Troy, so I forget a lot. Anyway, this is gonna be an update since 2022, I guess. So if you wanna roll, I'll jump right into this. And the purpose of what I wanna do tonight is give a little bit of a very quick overview about water rights, what they mean, some of the elements of that, give you a little bit of background, and then get into where you are, where your supply sits, where your legal supply sits, where your physical supply sits, and then look at your demands, and then kind of a little bit of an outlook going forward is, kind of a where we go from here thing. So almost all of your water, almost all of your legal water was always in the Upper Black Squirrel until recently, until the most recent acquisition that was Younger property, which is outside the Upper Black Squirrel, but we can bring water in. So that's kind of the new thing for this district, is having that water outside the UBS. And of course, most of your waters that are in the UBS are subject to those rules, as well as the state engineer, and governed by the UBS to some degree. As I mentioned, you recently acquired the Younger Source, which is in the Denver Basin, up north towards Douglas County almost, on the northern end of the county. but again, not UBS. So almost all of your water, with the exception of a small amount, is from what we call the Denver Basin, which is a deep rock aquifer, which stretches from the south side of, or north side of Denver, all the way to the south of our district and kind of into Colorado Springs. So it's a huge aquifer, and it's composed of 4 formations. And you won't be quizzed on this at the end, so but the 4 formations are the Dawson, Denver, Arapahoe, and LFH, and that's the order of their depth, okay? There's really no Dawson in this area, and of the Denver doesn't produce commercial-sized wells in this area either. So in this area, all of your water that we really generate is from the Arapahoe and the LFH formations. Denver Basin water, or this deep rock aquifer water, is finite. In other words, it was all put down 100 million years ago, and it is generally not renewable. So in other words, this is a bathtub, not a river. So when you draw out of the bathtub, what happens? It just gets emptier and emptier, right? So it's a finite source of water. And so therefore we use the term non-renewable. And it is not allocated in terms of the way you think about a lot of water rights, which are seniority based, but it's allocated based upon property ownership. So if you own a parcel of land, 40 acres of land, they project how much water is within each one of those formations in your 40 acres projected into the ground. That's as much water as the state will authorize through either a determination, which is if you're in a groundwater management district, you get a determination. If you're outside, you get a decree. So that's kind of a very, very crude, quick look at this. I know some of your needs, so please feel free to ask. Troy and many others, of course, have been through this a few times, so I'm going to try to get everybody else what they need to know and not get Troy bored. Anyway, go ahead.
While you're right there, John, are those aquifers rechargeable? It's not renewable, but are they rechargeable?
They are. In terms of rechargeable, that would be artificial recharge, though, okay? So to put water in there, we can't dump it on the ground. We've got to put it back all the way down. So, and we'll get to that. I know where you're going, and there's a little bit more at the end of this on the ASR thing that you're familiar with. So, legal supply versus physical supply. You probably heard the words bandied around about wet water and paper water. Well, let's talk about what that actually means. So a legal supply is a supply of water that's granted an authority to access that water if it's there by the state. So that's done through a determination in a groundwater management district, a decree that's outside of it. It doesn't guarantee that you get any water. So let's say you get a decree or a determination that is, make up a word, 100 acre feet per year, all right? You can take based upon that, you could access up to 100 acre feet of water if it's there. Sometimes it's not there. The state says, well, we'll give it to you, but there's no guarantee that under your 40 acres, you get that amount of water in that area. So, and it's true even with surface supplies. If it's not there, it's not there. So we tend to, and both are important. Having both the legal access to the water as well as the physical supply are both important. You need both. But that's where the term paper water comes from, is you have a decree for this amount of water. And if it's there, then you can put in the facilities to make it a physical supply. So the physical access to it is you might need a well, to access a deep rock aquifer. You need a well to get it out of the ground. If it was a surface supply, you need some sort of a diversion or whatever. You have to transfer it to your district and so on and so forth to get it there. So limitations on physical supply, even with the paper water, often are, A, it's not physically there the way the state thought it might be. B, you may not have the system in place to bring it into the district. So, and we'll talk about that a little bit about the younger water. the water quality may be unmanageable or difficult. In other words, it's so bad that you don't want to treat it, even though you have a right to it. You really don't have the funds to go to that level of treatment. Or it's not cost effective to be accessed in some fashion. So anyway, go ahead, Carter. Thanks for doing this, Carter. Right now, we tag your current physical supply. That X number is actually 1085. I made a mistake and remember this when I put this together, but we'll get to that later. But
Taking that off your invoice.
yeah, go for it. Yeah, go for it. We can do that. It's actually 1085 right now. I remember when I wrote this thinking, wait a minute, it's not, and I didn't get back there and change it. The physical supply has not been expanded much since about the year 2011. The Guthrie pipeline, some of the other well things that you've done, but you've been able to meet all your needs, since 2011 without expanding the physical supply. But at some point, that's coming up that you're going to need to take some of that paper water and convert it to what we call wet water. So wet water is water we can actually get out of the tap. Younger water added a huge amount to your inventory when you pick that up. Right now, it's paper water, but soon to be wet water as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit. And I want to talk very briefly about the 300-year rule, because you hear a lot about that. And you are subject to the 300-year rule in so much as development occurs within your district. The 300-year water rule is not a state rule. It's a county rule that has to do with the development of land. It really doesn't govern water supply or water demand. The county actually has no jurisdiction over water rights, so it doesn't affect water. I hear a lot of people say, oh, we're limited by the 300-year rule. No, the 300-year rule is used by the county to determine how many homes or whatever maybe a developer can put on a parcel of land and how much water supply needs to be there to back it up. But it's only a land use rule, it is not a water rule. So, I don't want to, as Troy knows, we could go down in the weeds on a lot of these things, but I did want to clarify that and bring that up, and that's why I threw it in here. Right now, and usually that's to some degree, looked at on legal supply. You have enough legal supply now to serve over 6,000 single-family equivalents. Single-family equivalents is what we as engineers use as our currency for delivering water. It's a single-family home. We take the average single-family home, and then with commercial, we turn them into homes. For instance, you put a Walmart out there, that's equal to 32 homes, or whatever that ratio might be. So when you see us talk about this, we have one currency rather than say we have 10 of these, 5,000 of these, and 43 of these, and so on and so forth. We just break them all into SFEs. So you now have, relative to the 300-year rule, enough wet or paper water to serve over 6,000 units. Over, not twice what you have now, but a lot. Your legal supply does not count return flows, and we'll talk about that a little bit, touch on that a little later when we get into where Troy's going with ASR. But right now, your 100-year supply is 5155 annual acre feet. So the state says you can withdraw up to 5155 annual acre feet from this whole system, all right? And we'll break it down a little bit more for you, because they're different sources and they live under different rules. Your 300-year supply, because a lot of the reason we talk about the 300-year supply and where you're going is because a lot of what you deal with is, can we serve this development? Can we not? Can we pick up this area? Can we not? If we pick up this area, do we need more water? So on and so forth. So that's why we do express the term in 300-year supply as well. And basically the 300-year supply is 1/3 of 100. So it's no magic there. Okay, go ahead. And guys, stop me if you have questions. And I know a lot of you are new, a lot of you understand a lot of this stuff, but it might not be there for everybody. So right now, you have three main areas that you take the non-renewable water, which is the Denver Basin water. You were originally built out on the local supplies in the Falcon area itself, generally within the district area. And within the area, you have what you can see the numbers up there. How much is your legal supply from the 11 wells that you have in the area? You also have an offsite well field known as Guthrie. You notice the Hart extension. You don't hear about the Hart extension, but when we did Guthrie way back, years later, Meridian and Woodman also bought some water on the Hart farm, which is almost adjacent to Guthrie. And if and when the time comes to expand Guthrie or whatever, that Hart water may be accessed. And then now you have, and I highlighted it here because this one's kind of new, is the Younger Wellfield, which, as you know, is a long ways away, but we'll get into how it is able to be accessible for you through your partnerships that you develop. And it's a pretty big well field. It's 700 acre feet on a 300-year basis, or 2,100 acre feet on a 100-year basis. You also have some renewable supplies. One of them is a perpetual forever contract with Cherokee, which I know those of you who have been the board have heard a lot about lately, but hopefully that's somewhat behind us. The Cherokee perpetual contract is for 350 acre feet per year. It's based upon alluvial supplies. So the original contract clearly states that it is based upon alluvial water, which is a renewable supply. So unlike the bathtub that we talked about, this is a river. It's groundwater, but it's more of a river because it is replenished by rainwater, a huge basin where water is soaking in. And so it's replenished on an annual basis, which if you want to look at the curve, sometimes it's replenished a lot faster, sometimes a lot slower, but overall, it is replenished over time. And at the Guthrie well field, you also have an alluvial water out there that brings 89 acre feet to your table, which is an interesting 89 acre feet because that 89 acre feet is special in so much as it could actually be taken out of the Upper Black Squirrel District. Not that you want to do that, but it can be used in a location that is not within the Upper Black Squirrel. All the rest of your waters must be used within the Upper Black Squirrel. Okay, move on. That's the supply side. So that's kind of a very, very overall view. There's a lot of little elements that we could go down in the weeds, like this well or that well is not performing, or this source from time to time is has to be dealt with. But let's talk about the water demand. So supply, demand, right? You've got to have more water than you need. Since 2010, you've had a 40% increase in single-family equivalent taps. And the water demand has increased only slightly over 15 years. That's overall demand. And that's it seems like very interesting right off the bat, that you got 40% increase in taps, but only a 15% increase in actual water use over that time. There's a couple reasons for that are not terribly surprising because we've seen this in many other places. The first one is the fact that in 2010 and thereabouts, you really started cranking on what we call back then an inverted block rate. Used to be back in the day, the more water you use, the less you pay for it. Goes the other way now. The more water used, the more you pay for it. So the unit cost goes up, not down. And as this district started moving towards those features back in that time frame, 2010 especially, in 2011, you see a lot of water start getting conserved pretty dramatically. And when we get to some of these curves, you'll see it. And that had a big impact. And by the way, we have a lot of other districts that have very similar, that they've had an increase over the last 15 or 20 years, but have very little increase in actual water demand because of all the pressures on conservation, and especially, a lot of people converting to the inverted block rates. Additionally, but from the year 2010 to 2015, you really didn't have much growth. I mean, it was at a standstill after the market crash, and it stayed very low in this district up till 2015. So you had those two and there's a lot of little other reasons, but you had those two major reasons that really drove the fact that you're able to deliver water to a lot more people with not as much demand. Anyway, so let's go to the first actual graph. And if you can't quite read that, this is one of the reasons that I gave you guys all hard copies. So that dashed blue line is the number of which we plan for each SFE that you have in your system. We plan 0.353 is the actual number, acre feet per year to serve a single family home. And so you can see we've kept that planning number very consistent. There's a lot of reasons to keep it very consistent, but there may be reasons to modify it in the upcoming years. The red line is a little bit more dramatic, and that's the annual typical use in acre feet per household actual. So that's what people actually used. And when I say actually used, we don't measure the amount of water that goes into your house. We measure the amount of water we pump out of the ground to serve those individual houses. There's other uses that happen. There's fire flows, there's flushing, there's backwashing, all sorts of things that are a function of the system that the more houses you have, the more of those things you will have as well. So they're water that supports the water that's delivered to the house. We've got to be able to pump enough out of the ground to get to the doorstep, but there's a lot of water that's peeled off in these different directions. The other line that's a little bit flatter and something that we use pretty strongly in our planning is what I call a running average. And the reason we use a running average is you have wet years, you have dry years, water goes up, goes down a little bit. You have a lot of annual movement in that simply because of wet years and dry years. And so we tend to track it on an RA basis, running average basis, is that's a little bit steadier, even though we have an envelope that we plan above and below for that for dry years. But take a look at that, and this is an important slide to kind of look at, and it explains kind of why you could increase a housing by 40% and only increase your water use by 15% because of what people are doing out there. A lot of, the other big thing is a lot of people took a lot of water out of irrigation. Okay. All right, this is the overall basis. So now, how much water did we use as a district? And the upper black line is we track your legal supply, so that's all your paper water. Obviously, there's no way you can deliver any more water than that black line. The orange line or yellow line is what we call physical supply. That's how much of the legal supply that we've converted to actually being able to deliver to a household. In other words, we got the wells in place, you have the raw water lines in place, you have the filter plants in place, the pump stations in place to actually deliver that water. And you'll notice how flat that is from the year about 2014. I can't remember what we did in 2014, but all the way out to now, we've been able to survive pretty well with that physical supply. And the red line again and the blue lines represent actual use, and then we also like to plan that running average. At the end, you see years beyond 2024 in dashed lines. Those are our projections through the year 2030 in terms of how much water you're likely to use, which is the red line, and then an outer line, which is the blue one, which is more of a dry year planning. So as we said, that water is going to go up and down based upon how the rain falls in any given year and how much water people pour on their lawns. So we always plan for the dry year, but in terms of physical supply, but we also anticipate that what we really use is going to look more like the red line on a running average. So the big thing to talk about here is you've obviously stayed well, within your supply capabilities, but you're gonna start squeezing that down in 25 and so on and so forth. So with younger water, you'll probably start generating some supply from the younger fields in the year 2027 or thereabouts. And so we started ramping up the physical supply because, and we'll get more into a little later on with fall arrangements and what that does for you, why you can ramp that up slowly rather than have to run out there and plunk $60 million to the ground on one day and drill all the wells. But that's gonna start increasing in 2027 and again, probably around 2030. You can do more than that. That's kind of just a planning number. I mean, you've got the capability of working within at least the first kind of go around with FAWA on the younger water of developing 300 acre feet, on a pretty quick basis. But you're probably going to do it slowly and bring the water into your system slowly. And there's going to be another reason we're going to talk about it a little bit more when we get later on. But as you notice, as that line creeps up, while you're finally having to start going ahead and put some more physical supply on the table. Okay. Real quickly, this is the percentage of your water that comes from these different buckets, and this is a good one to look at because it obviously where is your water coming from right now, but how much of it is renewable and how much of it is non-renewable. And in this particular picture, the two non-renewable sources are shown in kind of a red or a version of red, and the renewable supply is in some version of blue. There are two different ones because one obviously is coming from the Cherokee contract, one is from your Guthrie water, and then we separate your local non-renewable sources from your Guthrie non-renewable sources. And this is going to be an important one to look at and put them on the same sheet when you get there, because by 2030 you're going to have another color in there, water, and where that comes from. So, okay, go ahead. All right, what's the outlook on your water, local water? In other words, where are we with our Falcon supplies? There's roughly 11 wells out there, 5 Arapahoes, 5 LFHs, and 1 Dawson Denver. I don't think you ever use the Dawson Denver, do you? But
We use it.
you actually use a little bit. The portion that comes out of the Arapahoe formation is probably one that's in the word declination, by the way, is we refer to the fact of how rapidly that water source is declining. Is remember what it is, it's bathtub, pumping out of a bathtub, not out of a river. So how rapidly is that source declining? Because what will happen is the water in the wells themselves, the levels of water actually drop because the entire formation is kind of dropping as that water gets used. And in the Arapahoe formation, the declination has been greater than a 100-year rate for a while. And last time we checked it, or really projected it, was back in 2014. And there's some anecdotal information right now that suggests that it's going down even faster than what we predicted in 2014. So we're probably looking at kind of restudying that in the upcoming year. The LFH is in moderate declination at slightly less than a 100-year rate, but it's still going down. And the stuff in the Falcon area, in our area, is going down faster than the other stuff because we're pumping it really hard. And as we mentioned, it was the first supply in the district. When the district was first formed, it lived on nothing but the wells in this area. So they've been pushed pretty hard, and we do not foresee extending the local supply any further. In other words, we're not going to drill another well in the Falcon area unless we do it for a totally different purpose, which is what Troy's kind of alluding to in the future. We actually want to reduce the reliance on the formations under Falcon, get a little bit more rest to them by incorporating some other sources. And we'll talk about, now that we have the potential of bringing the younger water in now, how we can make that work, lower the dependence on the local source, so we got a little bit more sustainability and increase the viability of the water here. So that's kind of the outlook for the Falcon portion of your supply. So go ahead, Carter. This is an older curve. I'm not going to get into this too much, but it was the 2014 declination curve on the Arapahoe, and we think we're going down a little faster than this. I did not put this graph in the group because it really, it's probably a little obsolete, but I just wanted you to kind of see that curve and what that curve might look like over time. And by the way, that's a pretty long time that we project out there. But I think it's important just to get a sense of what that was looking like in 2014 and the fact that you might be ahead of that. And of course, like I mentioned, the Arapahoe and the Falcon area is the one that's declining the most rapidly for you. Okay. Younger well field. All right, this is all new. And you guys have obviously been dealing with this, for about a year and a half. But we mentioned earlier what it puts on the table, 2,100 acre feet of 100-year water, legal and ultimately physical supply. And by the way, that well field is pretty far in the north and the west. And when we get in the area of the younger well field, we look at the Arapahoe and the Denver formations more so than we do, like we do here, Arapahoe and LFH formations. Up there, the LFH becomes kind of difficult to deal with and is not as good at water and less. Up there, the Arapahoe and the Denver are the actual real producing formations that we use up in that area. And by the way, the yields from those wells are substantially higher than they are in this area. If you look at the map, and I didn't throw one in this time, but if you look at the Denver Basin map, we're kind of on the cusp of it. And remember, it's a bit of a bathtub or a bowl, right? So we're on the edge of the bowl, and our straws go straight down, so they may not go as into the fattest parts or the best parts of the aquifer like they do when you're starting to go north. So for that reason, it's a little bit easier water to develop. And of course, the Arapahoe and the Denver are a little shallower than the LFH, so you're not drilling quite as deep up there when we go down. So it's a long, long ways away. And that water on its own would be very difficult for Woodman Hills to bring into Woodman Hills. But you guys have worked very hard over the last year, all of us have, in putting the follow-up partnership together, which creates the joint utilization of what we call the Bar-X pipeline, which phase one of it is being completed this year, up to the very first well field. Your partnership with FAWA, they have 3 well fields up there, what we call the McEwen and the Winsome, the Bar-X well field, the Shamrock West well field, and then yours. Yours is the farthest away. So the first one, the arrangement with FAWA allows for you guys to exchange water, trade some water, so you can access some water that's a lot closer. So everybody's costs are down. You're participating in the facilities, but you're also getting access to water at a cost that's a lot closer to you than the actual younger well field, because it'll probably be the last thing we develop. So the big thing about the follow-up partnership is how you're sharing costs, but also the arrangement of sharing the water and trading. So you can trade some acre feet of future younger water for some acre feet of McEwen water so that we can deliver that to ourselves earlier and kind of work that trade with FAWA as they grow, as you grow. You don't have to build the entire pipeline all the way out to the end. We'll build the first 8 miles and we'll probably all live on that for the first 10 years or the next 10 years before we start leapfrogging to the next well field. So those are some of the big parts of this that are really important, in how you can make the younger water work for you, was this relationship through the follow-up partnership. And you participate in that pipeline and that treatment plant, which sits right next to the West Water Tank, which was something that was decided on years ago with the kind of a joint agreement use of the site that might have, gone this direction. So anyway, go ahead, Carter. Okay, the offsite UBS sources, so that's your Guthrie and your Cherokee and so on and so forth. The offsite Denver Basin and Guthrie water you're not using that real heavily just yet. You're using the Denver Basin water at a fraction of what's the determination is. But as you want to access more of that, you can add to that well field and keep drilling wells. Probably not going to do that in the near future. But the Denver Basin out at Guthrie is showing less fatigue than the Denver Basin water in our area. So it's a little stronger in showing at least a little bit more rigidity. The Cherokee source is a perpetual contract. You're going to take that 350 acre feet, generally every year. I know that lately there's been some water quality issues that have made JD's had to manipulate move some water over here and around there to manage some water quality issues.
Excuse
But-
me, is the water quality or the frequency been, is it recurring more or less? Or?
I'm gonna let JD, you're closer to that than me, as to how often you've had some difficulties
So far,
with
the
that.
last 2 years, we hadn't had a very significant outbreak of groundwater calls.
But I know he's had it a couple of years ago that was pretty acute, so, and so that's another reason why you always want extra water out there, because if he's got to turn that source off for a while,
Sure.
he needs to be able to make it up from over here or over there. So we got a straw way out west. We obviously have our straws locally. We have our straw down south, with Talmud, and now we have this big straw to the northwest. So having those tentacles out there is important for you and important for the staff to be able to manage that water. But overall, you want to be taking that full source as much as you can every year. Last, the Guthrie alluvial itself is fully owned by you. And so you want to be able to use that, up to its capacity, forever. So it's yours as long as, that 89 acre feet is there in the alluvium. And so far it's been decent. It's stayed strong. Again, like I said, remember those two secondary sources are rivers, not bathtubs. So that's kind of the way to think about it. Okay, Carter. Well, that's a little smaller font than I can see from here, but that's okay. I know what's in there. I'm showing my age here. I didn't bring my glasses. That's why I knew that when I saw these graphs, I go, oh my God, I can't see that. I better print some of these things. So outlook, we want to take a little pressure off Falcon wells, start pushing a little bit more out. Bringing the younger water in 2027, trying to back off of the local area and lower our reliance on that, but hopefully we can make that viable for longer. Is the Guthrie water, now that we have the younger, we probably don't want to do a lot more with Guthrie for a while, but for a long time, we were anticipating we would be drilling this Guthrie well. But the last 2 years, we kind of tabled that because now we'd really rather, now that we've got this younger water, we want to start tapping that source and keeping that Guthrie a little bit more to ourselves for the future. You obviously have more than enough water to serve the build out that it looks like today, but as you guys know, you're continually being asked to expand the district, serve more over here, more over there, and you're going to continue to do that. But if you built out everything you have more than enough water to do that, to fill out the entire last bit of build out that you have within the district and what you've added recently. Woodman Hills is in a very good position, and certainly for the next 20 years or so. But I will mention that we still are heavily reliant on our non-renewable water, and so therefore, we still have to keep our eyes out for how we ultimately develop more non-renewable water in the long run. And of course, I'm talking about decades down the road, not in the next 15 minutes, but your eyes still have to be out there on that future, and that may or may not happen quickly, but we need to be looking at. And then the last thing in the outlook is we probably need to take another look. It's been almost 10 years or so since we really evaluated what the declination rates on the local and the Guthrie water. and get a better handle on that, so we kind of have a better 50-year prediction. Because right now, 50 years is pretty far out there. And, having the history that we have now in those wells, we've generated a lot of history over the last 15 years that we can use to better predict what's going to happen and help plan for managing the local water and the Guthrie water in our area. Next. This is a projected, remember I mentioned and that's why I put these two on the same slide. The thing you'll notice if you look at the two, or not the same slide, but on the same piece of paper on what you're looking at, but this is possibly what you're going to be looking at in 2030. The big moves you see here is the blue water, which is the Guthrie alluvial. You're going to continue to use it the same, but the utilization of it is about the same as in 2030 they'll be today, because you're going to use the same amount of water, but as you grow and use other waters, you're going to mix that up a little bit. The big change here is the red, the heavy red. And that's the local, right now you use almost 40% of your water comes from here, the local stuff. And hopefully by 2030, we push that number all the way down to about 26%. That's a pretty big change in how we use this local water. And the way we do that is the yellow, that is a new source that you don't see on the other map. And you started to add younger water into the mix and started to use the younger follow-up partnership to bring water in for several purposes. One, growth, because you're still going to have growth, over the next 5 years. And but the other big thing is to kind of take that heavy red and keep shrinking that a little bit and taking more pressure off of the local supply so we can extend those. And then the Tamlin water is you're going to continue to use that. It's 350, but you will see its percentage will go down ever so slightly as you use these other sources. But you do want to use that 350 to the best extent you can every year, because again, river, not bathtub, right? Okay, I think I have one or two more here. Future. All right, we're finally getting to where Troy wants to be. So what do we do to next steps? Obviously the younger is a big project. You kind of have it all set up now. Now that's kind of okay. We just have to plunk the next systems in and start bringing that supply in, but you've got all the agreements, contracts, and you own the water that you need to make that work. So, as we look down the road, what are we going to look at? Well, we'll probably continue to look at, upper black squirrel, alluvial rights where we might get those. There's not a whole lot left, and the ones that are out there have a lot of fur on them. When I say a lot of fur on them, what I mean is they have a lot of problems associated with them. And uncertainties, so because there's not, when you go to it's not like they restock the apples in the grocery store. Why, we're down to buying the bad apples now, is what I'm saying. it's all the good ones are gone, right? And nobody's restocking the shelf. Obviously, southern sources being brought out. There's a lot to discuss, and Eastern Loop is just one of them, but CSU's changing attitudes. They're starting to come up with 25 years of agreement for convey, treat, and deliver. So they're slowly moving towards more and more to being able to support entities. And then we talked about the CSU or CSU delivery and what options you might have there to work into a way southern straw. And aquifer recharge and storage. All right, so I talked about how bad the Arapahoe Formation under Falcon area is getting. That's the bad news. The good news is we're creating a lot of space. So as we empty the bathtub, we're actually creating a lot of space down there at the same time, which is the bit of good news relative to that. So as we go forward, most of these water supplies that we talked about, the one exception to it is the 350 acre feet of Cherokee water. All the rest of that water is what we call fully consumable. That's actually the good news about non-renewable water, is you get to use every drop of it. When I say every drop of it, what I mean is we take it, we deliver it to the customers, and we capture it in a wastewater system. The water that comes out of that wastewater plant is still ours. That's not always true with most surface rights, that they may or may not be fully consumable. All of that water is fully consumable. In other words, what's coming out of there is, remember we talked about we're buying rotten apples now, but that water is still our water. And right now, we're sending a lot of water down the street because the systems aren't in place to deal with that. But we're getting closer and closer, and we're already doing several projects in the county where we're starting to do what we call direct potable or indirect potable reuse. And what that is taking that water, we're cleaning it up so much now, the wastewater plant, that the next step is, well, why not reuse this water because it's yours. So when we talk about the supply, since all of that water is generally fully consumable, and there's there's 100 caveats to all these things, because I'm hitting high points. But the bottom line is, if we treat that water at certain levels, we now have a place to put it too, which is that Arapahoe Formation and Yellow Face Formation underneath our district. And the reason of using here, not going out, is because we have a big enough area that when we put it down in the middle of the district, we can build a well system around that we can recapture that water. So the ASR, being able to utilize that water that you already own, but is not shown on either your legal or wet water supply side. The reason isn't because it's a really big leap to be able to take that water and be able to use it that way. But we're getting closer and closer to this, guys. And already there are people who in the county that we're doing more than one direct potable reuse plant. So we're getting there. And then the other thing is the indirect reuse, which is not only taking that water, but using that in an ASR function, but potentially taking it and using it for our irrigation and splitting it up that way. So, and I didn't get too deep into the ASR part of this, but it's been on the plate for a long time. And the Younger water continues to provide a water source that is fully consumable, so all that water is going to be coming in from Younger is going to still have your name on it when it comes out of the plant. So it's a valuable resource, and we talk about, well, non-renewable water not so good. Well, the other side of it's fully consumable, so you can reuse that. When you start reusing those supplies, well, now you start taking that 100-year supply and stretching it out over longer periods of time, because you're able to get that water that right now we're just sending down the creek. I tried really hard to get to this fairly quickly tonight, because as Troy knows, I could probably sit here and talk about this all week. But
I have to put a little blanket out of my truck.
yeah, but I'm pretty passionate about it. But there's also a lot of thought that's gone into a lot of the things that have been done here, and where we're going with things, and where your future is. But I think the big thing that I really want to get into is, what things can I answer for you guys? I mean, we've obviously hit a lot of the 30,000-foot view. You've seen some of the projections and so forth. But what am I leaving out? What questions are in you guys' minds as you look at this? And those of you who are new to the board, and just stepping in this role now and being tasked with caretaking this district, I want to make sure that we answer all your questions. And if we don't, oh, by the way, Carter's got the PowerPoint, so you can send it out obvious, so you can restudy it again, going, I think I caught about 50% of what John said. What the hell did he really say? I'm gonna go read it again. But if you have questions later on, hey, everybody's here to answer those questions. And whether it's me, Carter, JD, or whatever, everybody's, wants you to be a very educated board, because the more educated board you are, the better off we are. So the better off the district is. So I don't hear you. Come on.
I have a couple questions.
Okay, here we go. Troy, thank you.
Are there any studies out there yet that show what the recharge rate has to be to stop the declination of the aquifer?
No. And that number is probably, you still have, well, you can slow it down, way down. You won't totally stop it unless you're literally just putting water in and never taking any out. So, and by the way, just, here's a couple of numbers to keep in your mind. But as we project these things, until we try to push some water into the Arapahoe Aquifer, we're not 100% sure what's really going to happen. But we generally project that if we originally took out of an Arapahoe well 35 gallons a minute, we could actually push as much as 2/3 of that rate, that original rate, back down. So if we originally could pump an Arapahoe at 35 gallons a minute, we can probably push additional 25 down and spread that out. We usually don't, it could be that we get 100%, okay? But right now, the rule of thumb kind of is 2/3 of that number we can push back down. So the answer to the question really is, unless you're just pumping water in there and never taking any out, you still are gonna continue to use it, you will build it up a little bit, but you're not, unless you put more water in than you're taking out ever, then you won't change the direction of that.
Well, and I ask that because, the way it's presented as we're on the edge of the bathtub. So if we're pumping the water back in, even if we put our well field or wagon wheel out to pull that water back out, how much of that is going to be lost back into the deeper part of the bathtub?
And what we project right now, and what one of the most commonly accepted values for that is what we call 80-20. So when you go to do this, by the way, you need a case. It's called a replacement plan, which says, okay, you can take that water, put it down, you can take it back out, and here's all the accounting mechanisms to allow you to do that. Most of those agreements are going to be based upon an 80-20 split. So not only do we put it down, but keep in mind that you're probably gonna, 20% of it, you're probably not gonna be able to withdraw. But, in other words, if we put 100 acre feet in and we have 100 acre feet in that bank, we can only probably take 80 acre feet out. Now, the good news is it lost or is it just going into storage? There's not really a certainty on that. And as to whether you may not be able to take it out under those circumstances, but you may find that you're back, that 20% is helping offset that, and so your base pumping might come back up a little bit. So that's kind of a long way around answering the question, the 2/3 and the 80-20. Those are the splits kind of that we anticipate going into a project like that. Now, obviously,
So do we gain that water back? So if we're putting it back in and it's 80-20, everybody else is benefiting from us doing that.
maybe not.
Are they going to put requirements in for other districts in the area to where if they build a plant like this, they have to do the same thing?
Yes,
So
the
that the
80-20
water
is
is
going to be.
equitable.
80-20 is going to probably be across the board, okay? The question is, is 20% of it actually leaking out of your area, or is it retained in the agreements or the decrees or the determinations, the replacement plan doesn't allow you to get it? Whether to say, okay, that's actually acre feet that you really ultimately may get back through increased base pumping, or does it bleed out of the system?
Well, I think it's reasonable for some bleed.
Just
I mean,
assume
we're at the headwaters,
let's assume
so-
that it's gone.
Okay.
So, when we look at the ESR project, we're gonna project it based upon the 2/3 put down as to what the aquifer can take. So the nice thing is you can put, especially if we're building indirect potable plant, that plant runs, the wastewater side of this thing runs 24/7 throughout the, and every day of the year, whereas our big pumping comes in the summer. We can put 25 gallons a minute down that hole 365 days a year, and then take it out over a period of 180 days too, which really helps you increase how you meet your peak. Because not only, we talk a lot about today about acre feet, which means, when we talk acre feet, that's how much water we're delivering on an annual basis. But we also have to make what we call the gallons per minute work. In other words, we have to be able to also meet the demands on July 4th when everybody's practicing the great American pastime of watering the lawn. So, you know, taking it out at those rates, you know, being able to put it down very, very evenly throughout the year and mounding that water up around that well is gonna allow them to take it out, you know, more in a peak fashion. But I would assume, you know, I think we go in making the assumption that we get 80% back. Now, that may or may not hold, and the other thing is, I mean, it might end up being 75-25. In reality, it might be 85-15, but 80-20 is what most of the replacement plans are going to allow. And, you know, may that change over time? I'm guessing no.
Is there a requirement for how many injection wells we would have to have per wells? So if we have 10 straw or 11 straws pulling water out, how many injection wells do we have to have?
Probably half that number. So let's just start with.
Or if you increased it, I mean,
Yeah.
is it 1 for 1, or should we? would we be
It's
better
probably
1
not 1-for-1, and there's a good reason for that. We also have to consider the geometry, all right? And right now, this is a good, remember I said we're not gonna poke any more holes into the Falcon Loop, or Falcon Denver Basin, unless we want them for ASR. So we want to inject in the middle of the district and pull from all the wells, because your wells are kind of built around, you know, the upper half of the system. So we want to be putting water back in the middle, taking it out from all of them. And the reason we don't want to be putting water in at the edges of the district is, as we put the water in, if you can imagine it going into a sponge, it slowly bleeds out away. And that's great if we're doing it in the middle of the district, right? If we're doing it on the edge, some of that's going to get away from us. And some of that's going to go into our neighbors' wells. So, not that we have a lot of neighbors to the east, but we certainly do all around the rest of us. So, the answer to the question, I think, is we probably would use one of the well sites and then maybe plunk some more in that are more in the area of, you know, south of and west of the west or the East Rec Center. So probably use that area is where we're gonna wanna put more water in and continue to take it out. And the other thing the other reason that I mentioned that we won't drill any more wells there is we may, when we get to this point, drill what is known as well site 4, which is the number in the middle. You have 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. But 4 is designated out. You guys know where filter plant 3 is off of like Eastonville. It's on the very east side of the district. That is a location that we potentially would drill that well, so we kind of close the loop around where we would inject in the future. So we're not going to go do that to get more water because of where it's going. We might drill that well to pull out to better manage how we would do ASR, with starting with water going into Arapahoe Formation, you know, first, and then maybe expanding in the future into sending water to the LFH as well. I kind of answered some of your questions, but some of them are still, you know, we don't know 100% until we get there, but those are the general guiding principles right now that we can plan for.
That's all I got.
It's too easy, guys, come on. Well, either of this, you know.
No, I'm just happy with the numbers. I mean, it's come a long way in the last 7 years. I think we were 32% renewable sources then. So.
Well, you haven't increased your renewable sources any. Younger is not renewable, but it is a strong. It's a stronger non-renewable source if you take that. And we continue to look at deals here and there, and as you guys know, that those, if something happens, it's going to be an executive session because that's an actual negotiation. But in the staff tends to look at probably 8 or 9 things, and maybe of that 1 or 2 makes its way to the board because they it was a good idea. We investigated, we did our homework, and you know. So staff is always looking at this thing or that thing here and there to strengthen the supply and add to the sources and make the system stronger, but of all the things we look at, why it's a pretty low percentage that actually works out for the district, so. Anyway, come on. No questions? Either this was perfectly clear or completely clear as mud, one of the two things, right? So anyhow, that's where you are, in a strong position. But that doesn't mean that you have to continue to plan, doesn't mean you need to continue to, look ahead. Now we don't have to worry about the 20-year outlook, Well, about 5 years ago, we were worried about 20 years. Now we can start thinking about maybe 50 years, a little bit more, so you're in better shape than you were. All right? Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John.
All right. Again, if you have any questions, send them in. Carly will answer them, JD will answer them, or I will answer them, one of the three things, but we'll get you the information you need.
Thank you.
All
Yes,
right.
Stacy.
Yeah. John, attorney's report.
Yeah, I'll let Carter bring it up here and then Kelsey can ask questions.
Wow.
Wow. If you would put more information on this, I wouldn't have as many questions. But because
okay.
you literally put one sentence for every issue.
Okay, all
Listen,
right.
you do not want him to put more on there that charges us.
Yes.
Word
Word.
per minute, the cost.
Yeah. He charges in 15-minute increments, right, John?
6 minutes.
6
It got worse. It got worse while we were sitting here.
Oh my god. I think my mom told me her
Engineers are
lawyer
cheaper
cost
than
like
lawyers.
$300 an email or something, and I was like, oh my god, make a big email. Tell me more about ground squirrels.
Yeah, so Carter, I'll let you fill the blanks on this. Basically, there are ground squirrels within Woodman Hills, and Carter and I discussed possible liability to the district if the ground squirrels were not removed and they ended up damaging resident property. And the
Ground squirrels,
yeah, so
not prairie dogs. Okay.
yeah, I tried to Google the difference. They look exactly the same. But
In my neighbor's yard.
But, so the short answer is with the ground squirrels, there's kind of two ways you can remove them, to my understanding. One is poison and one is with traps. And since there was a reason why poisoning didn't work for this period of time or location, so the question was, did the district want to incur a fairly substantial expense to have manual trappings go on over a set period of time to try and remove these ground squirrels? And this initial issue, I think, was brought to light because a resident complained as to holes being dug in their yard, and they believed the ground squirrel nest, as it were, was on district property. And the short answer is I couldn't find any example that essentially a government entity or anyone else was liable for not removing non-dangerous animals from their property. So I'm not sure what decision the district decided, but
Depends, because prairie dogs can carry the plague.
Right. It's not prairie dogs, no.
Is that up to the district to get rid of them then?
It's a delicate decision.
Well, especially when you're talking about
Because-
poison.
If,
Well, my neighbor
That's
called it an
risky.
exterminator, and I found him out there a couple weeks ago at night with his car with a hose taped to the
Hose?
tailpipe, running the carbon dioxide into the hole to try to kill him.
Wow.
And that's what they recommended,
That's,
Oh my God.
was
What
pump carbon
pest man?
dioxide in there.
what investment are they using?
That's a problem.
so,
Propane
the
oxygen.
issue is, there's
You're right
a
there.
piece of property close to RCD that we own that has these ground squirrels on, that it's mating season, and so they are migrating to other people's property. So one of these property owners contacted us and was not very happy about it, understood. And so that's where we got our exterminators involved to say, okay, what kind of an issue is this, what are our options? And then it got legal involved to say, are we required to do anything? What action are we required? What liability do we have? The liability is zero. by law, there is nothing that says we have to do anything. So that's why I say it's a very delicate situation in terms of what the district does and doesn't do, because whatever we do does set precedence for what we will do from here on out. So we did end up having the exterminators go out there and remove the ground squirrels.
Define remove.
They are no longer in
They've
this location.
been transplanted to a board member's yard.
Leo would love that.
With
That's
his dented
more,
garage.
that's more natural if like Leo gets a hold of one of them.
So,
That's not a cat going in your garage, it's actually a ground squirrel.
But I also have a golden retriever and he would love that.
Oh,
He would
sure.
have fun with it, as long as he doesn't bring it in the house, then we're good. Okay. Great.
But it's an ongoing problem,
That's what I'm
and it's
hearing.
going to continue to be a problem because as we continue to develop, where these ground squirrels like to be is homes are being built, businesses are being built, so they're migrating to other pieces of property. So this is continuing to be an issue that we will just have to deal with as they pop up.
So just,
and we've checked with CPW to make sure these aren't protected ground squirrels.
That's what I'm
That
worried
was,
about.
that was one of my big concerns when I first heard about this, was like, oh, is this one of those protected black squirrels that?
Are they upper black
Yeah.
squirrels?
Yeah.
We don't want to deal with them.
I don't want to deal with that. So that was another consideration why I wanted John to weigh in from a legal perspective. They are not the protected class of squirrel,
Okay.
but they are a nuisance to the community. So we made the decision to remove them from that piece of property and hopefully help the neighbor, our community member, feel good about it.
have they had any feedback for you, the resident?
Not since we took care of the
They
problem.
just said okay.
But that's typical, right? Like, if there's a problem, they say something. If there's not a problem, they don't say anything.
Got it.
No news is good news.
Correct.
PETA comes in this meeting because we're quote removing them.
I said remove. I didn't say
I know,
how.
and I said quote remove.
They were transplanted.
They're gone.
Yeah.
Oh.
As far as the delinquent accounts,
Delinquent accounts was just a real simple conversation with Carter's office on kind of the process for this year. I believe we've queued that up. Is it going to be the October meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had one small change from what we did last year. Last year, Carter's office kind of handled everything A to Z. We ended up getting feedback that one of the residents whose accounts, well, one of the customers whose accounts was certified was in bankruptcy. And generally that ceases all collection action. So this year, just to avoid, nothing ended up happening. We ended up just called the county, pulled the receipt, nothing happened. To prevent that this year, Carter's office sent me the name and address of every account that was gonna be certified. I did a real quick bankruptcy check, made sure the property wasn't in foreclosure, and then just confirmed they were actually the owner of the property. And then sent that back. So Carter and I's office have been kind of coordinating a little bit, just doing a quick review, currently with Carter's office to send out demand letters, and we'll be certifying any accounts that aren't brought current at the October meeting.
So this, I think it was this week, we sent out certified mail letters to all of those accounts, letting them know they have until a certain date in order to either pay or make some sort of arrangement with the office. If they fail, then we will certify that with the county.
sent out for this year already, or no?
It's for, technically for
for-
2020. So here's, the rule is it has to be 6 months or more, well, delinquent, and it has to be over $150. So those are the eliminating factors. So it's a running balance from in last year and then potentially some of this year's balance.
Got it.
That's part of that.
Okay.
I will tell you, it's all sewer accounts, right? Because if it's a water account, I'll just shut your water off and then you'll pay. It's the sewer accounts that pose the problem, so Falcon Highlands and paintbrush hills, mostly paintbrush hills.
And the way is that basically these delinquent charges will be added to the homeowner's property tax bill that they'll be paying in 2026. So when they pay their property taxes in 2026, then the district will be reimbursed from the county
for whatever amount was certified.
And it's a real headache for us, to be honest with you. So once we certify an account, that account no longer exists with that particular person. Now that account technically is owned by the county. So now we have to create a whole new account for every single one of these and start billing them on the new account as soon as we certify. And then once we get paid from the county, it goes back to the old account, gets paid off, zeroed out, and then closed out. So it is a lot of administrative headaches that I would love to avoid, but there's really nothing we can do because we can't shut off sewer. That would be illegal,
How
unfortunately.
can we can shut off water but not sewer?
Yeah, sewer is illegally shut off.
I'm surprised, why isn't water illegal to shut off?
You can go get bottled water.
You can get a cup of water and it's free.
Some places it is.
And this actually, just to kind of keep going down the list, there's a note about discussing fees and rates. Part of what we just discussed also ties in kind of a conversation Cart and I had about fees and rates that the district charges. And one of the things about collections is the way almost all special districts operates is that, if there's a delinquent account, any costs for getting the homeowner to pay that account is added onto that homeowner's ledger. That way your neighbors aren't paying for us to have to collect your tax bill or property tax or fee bill. And so we had just kind of a discussion, kind of went down and talked about how, for the certifications and for other matters going forward, kind of tying the, any costs imposed to the best of our calculating ability, adding that to the actual delinquent homeowner's bill, as opposed to letting other residents essentially foot that cost for them. So that's where that fees and rates comes from, just kind of reviewing current fees and rates, trying to tie them to accurate costs, and making sure those are allocated properly to those incurring the costs.
That's all the questions I have.
I will say on the amended restated service plan, we have paid the fee that's owed to the county. It's a little over $4,000 that we had to pay for them to review it. It is in the initial stages of review.
We should have our first red lines back before the next meeting.
Cool.
We're still on track to get it on the BOCC calendar before the end of the year, and assuming it gets to the calendar this year, it'll get approved.
I like it. Good.
Second.
I'll just, okay. All right, moving forward, executive session.
Sure. Is there a motion to enter executive session for determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation under CRS 246402-4E, namely draft FY26 rate and budget discussions and the Waterbury inclusion? Can I get a motion?
Motion.
And second?
Make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous motion carries.
You want to take 5 minutes?
All right, so out of executive session, moving on to items unfinished from previous meeting. We have any? Okay. Board follow-up on older items. Nothing? Nothing listed. Other business.
You're lucky I don't have my other notepad here.
But I'll make this quick. So from the HOA Homeowners Association for the Metropolitan Club, questions arose regarding land ownership. And so part of who owns, how much, Woodman Hills, the district owns, and who, the taking care of that land. So I have questions surrounding that, but where would I source out what land Woodman Hills owns?
Easiest way, if you Google El Paso County GIS map, you can get a map, you can click on a parcel of land, it'll tell you who owns it.
I can send you a picture. I have a plot map of my house.
Okay. And then there was a discussion, with the HOA about the dissolving the HOA. Okay, no decision was made, but it can't be dissolved without, they can't own any land, and there's a small sliver of land evidently that the HOA owns, but it's adjacent to Woodman Hills District land.
Correct.
And so, I guess, getting some clarification about that,
Yeah.
maybe what discussions have been held with the district.
They reach out to me stating that same information, and they want to deed over that piece of property to us. Again, it's adjacent to property that we already own. It's no big deal. Let's talk to John. John sent me over a deed form, pre-filled with all of our information. I sent that over to the HOA for them to fill out. And as soon as they fill it out, notarize it, file it, we'll own the piece of property.
Which HOA is this?
Metro Club,
Metro Club.
Dang.
not yours.
Operated by Team Strategy.
Right.
No, but no longer operating.
Yeah.
Do we need to do anything?
No.
Okay, because there's no money
Once
involved.
they deed it over,
There's
we
no
just
money
own it.
involved, it was just,
Yeah.
they needed to relinquish that land to be able to dissolve the HOA.
How long did it take you to dissolve the HOA?
Pardon me?
How long did it take you to dissolve the
Well,
HOA?
they haven't yet. They
It's
just
both.
had.
They're starting by
discussed it.
getting rid of all assets.
Yeah.
I need step-by-step instructions.
That's a good pull because most of our HOAs, it ends up, when they go to vote, it's 50-50 almost always.
Yeah, they needed a super majority, so 101 votes. That's yes, out of the 150.
It's Filing 11 has tried it a couple of times and it's come out about 50-50.
Right.
Supermajority of, is it residents or household owners? Who gets
Owners.
owners? And so, just out of curiosity, if a single person owns a piece of property, he gets one vote. But if it's jointly owned, do they both get a vote, or one vote per household?
Great question.
I don't remember, actually. It's been a while since I did HOA work. Look at the bylaws, how about that?
Is it 150?
150 homes.
150 homes.
That'll be $250 for that piece of
Give it a secondary bill.
Paid in cash.
No other business.
Okay,
I have a couple pieces. So the county reached out this week, sent us some packages. The Eastonville Road widening project, phase 1, requires them to get some pieces of property as well as some temporary construction easements in order to do that widening. That impacts us obviously because we own property up and down Eastonville. So what I have up on the screen are some of the areas that they are looking to purchase or do a temporary construction easement in. Bandon Arrow Drive has got quite a bit. And then, what's the other road? Forgot. Motley.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
It's actually filter plant 3 all the way down to Motley.
yeah.
Is that east side or west side? I guess that's
This one is
east
west side.
Yeah.
West side there.
Yeah, and just kind of for the color coordination, the yellow is the portion that the county is looking to purchase, and the blue is the portion they're looking for a 1-year temporary construction easement.
Where do you see yellow at?
What's the scope of the widening?
It's right here. That's yellow, believe it or not.
Yeah, the faded,
That's
real
yellow.
faded yellow right there.
Uh-huh.
So from Bandon Arrow through,
So that's all just across the street from Liberty Tree.
Yeah.
That's the.
Oh, well,
the
it's
church.
part-
No, that's the
Yeah,
church.
that's the
From the
church.
church.
Across from the church.
across from the church all the way down to Motley.
Okay.
And then the question was asked, because then that yellow is gonna be the improvement of a sidewalk, curb and gutter. And if the county's purchasing the land and putting in the sidewalk, the question I asked was, at what point does the county stops maintaining that? And they put the onus back onto Woodman Hills to maintain. So,
John and I talked about that today. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I think it was
We talk
today.
every day.
Yesterday.
That's why your bill's so
Cha-ching.
high. But our discussion was, whatever the board decides to do, we would put in writing what you guys want. So if it is guarantees from the county about maintenance and what they're going to do, responsibilities, how we're gonna hold them accountable, or we say, fine, we can put this in, we'll maintain it for you, but you're gonna pay us for that maintenance. Again, whatever the board decides they wanna do, I will just tell you, they're gonna take this property one way or another. It's either going to be through a sale or it's gonna be through eminent domain. It's going to happen no matter what.
Then we want like was supposed to happen before on the land trade, the corner lot at Eastonville and Stapleton, which they're supposed to be giving us anyway. It's been 3 years. That property should be outside of developer first right of refusal. And
I didn't even think about that.
And they need to put a crosswalk across the street in front of Liberty Tree and a flashing light.
And they need to put flashing lights down further too. Yeah, when they do that.
Because that's a school zone that has never been properly addressed.
Yeah,
I like that.
100%.
Is that the one they
I like
wanted
that.
is that the property they wanted the district to put in the drainage pond?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. And maintain
They may come
that.
back and ask for that.
Those aren't unreasonable requests. Those
No.
are requests from the community as a whole,
Right.
not from this board.
Right. That's
Certainly,
didn't
Let's
even think
ask.
about that. That's a great perspective to say, yeah, sure, you can have this property, but we
If
want
they'll
this
do
in
that, they
return.
can have it.
Yeah,
Can't have a property, just the,
just the right of way.
Yeah.
I know they buy GD's
Is
it-
filter blank.
Not just in front of the,
It'll go all the way down there to Bandero, from Bandero to Motley.
So the other thing that we gotta consider, because we do have a water main that goes along the same route, it is in the right of way. As well as the sewer line coming from Meridian, coming into Woodman Hills past the country club. And our
Metro.
Metro Club. Yeah, Metro Club, and then our sewer discharge from the EP3 plant starts right there as well, comes into the same line. So how much of that's gonna be in that purchase of the land there, where it overlaps, so we have a utility in there, it's a perpetual, those things, have to be fleshed out as well.
They're
Certainly.
responsible for full burden.
Yeah, we'll certainly talk to him about it, and that's one where, a little bit, I think the negotiations are gonna come back to what the city wants to do with that. I don't know if they have to remove it and Woodman has to put in a new one. I don't know what's gonna be required for their street widening, if they're gonna wanna align it with the side of the street again.
Well,
But
I don't know. if
they'll pay for that. I think will be our request, obviously.
I don't think that they probably wanna move the water line or the sewer line, because you got the, high pressure gas line that runs on the same side of the road.
Okay.
So if you wanna go dig down and New Star comes out there and they have to be inspecting every little shovel that you put into the ground next to their utility.
I would suspect, do you know what they've done for the rest of their expansion elsewhere in their project? Okay, because I imagine they would do the same.
They haven't done anything.
Okay.
This is,
Just an initial
this is literally phase one.
Okay, so the other piece for the board so far is, there's gonna be a couple pieces of this, the negotiations the later half. For today's meeting, there's two little points I was gonna make. The first is that some of this temporary construction easement, the blue, that's the top color.
Thank you.
This one.
I can see the blue one.
That it actually, so on the other picture, it actually does go into homeowner lots. So if those homeowners have fences or something, just if they come and complain to the district, they should know that the city's the one ripping out their fence. But just county, excuse me. Thank you. It's getting late. The county's the one ripping out their fence, not the district. So just be aware you may get a complaint. It happens. The second is that for the moment, the only request here tonight is permission for the county to come out and, one, survey, and two, come up with an assessed valuation of the property, which they're then gonna propose for the purchase price, and a cost for the temporary construction easement. Per the terms of what they sent us, the district, based on those numbers, can then make a decision whether they wish to accept that evaluation or hire their own assessor to come out and gauge a different price, and then a negotiation can be had on adjusting that price. And this is one where I have no idea what they're gonna offer, what, the actual value might be, so that may be a determination for a later night, but Well, actually, put it on later night, another night. But for tonight, the question for a vote for the board would be just permission to have the county come out and 1 survey and 2 propose evaluation.
And it does allow for our own property evaluation if we want. I did talk to Jeanette at Meridian Service because one of the pieces of property off the Eastonville, we jointly own with them. They have some other properties as well that the county's looking to go, and they are going to get their own appraisal, but it's because the piece of property is, their opinion is worth a lot more than maybe what the county's gonna do. So she just asked, you know, what are we thinking we're gonna do? I told her we're bringing it up to the board tonight. I'll let her know what the board plans on doing. And then we have 2 options. We can either sign the one that's jointly owned, which is this one, and then we'll turn in both sheets, one signed by them, one signed by us. Or we can wait until they give me their signed copy and then I can bring it to you when to get you to sign it. It doesn't matter which way you guys want to do it, but like John said, the only thing we need from the board tonight is, are you okay with moving forward with the survey and appraisal?
So we're basically granting them access to cross onto our property to do survey work.
Yes.
They can now access the public property without reprisal from the district.
So we need a motion to allow the county to proceed with a survey of the property in reference to their Eastonville expansion project.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Do I have any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
That's weird.
Uh-oh, do we lose her?
I did. I lost internet.
Yeah, your internet went out.
No, it came back.
Oh, there it is.
She's gonna be mad you hung up.
No, she's not.
No, she's like, this is awesome. I'm done. I'm not available. I'm not available. Troy said to hang up on her. Look at that picture. Should put that out there in front of them prairie dogs.
So I'll just leave you on speaker on my phone.
Okay.
Again, the dad jokes.
Did you catch all that, Stacy?
I do not.
Okay, do we need to go back over it?
You have a majority approval, so
Okay.
I think you're fine.
All right.
We'll just make a note that I guess Stacy abstained from that one.
Due to technical difficulty.
Thanks. You guys are real funny.
Oh, they've been saying jokes.
So, this section.
Okay.
Is that how we should record it, John, in the minutes?
Yeah, just due to technical
Oh,
difficulties,
for
Stacy.
home address and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
So, how do we do, on here, this form says home address.
Let me check it real quick. I had a review for how to sign it properly. Permission to enter property.
Because I've seen I could put.
No, I'm not putting my home address. or we can and be like,
I mean, I guess we could
well.
put the property address in question. This one right here.
Do you have the
This
cover,
is
do you have
the-
the cover page for it as well?
Yeah.
Okay. You guys can keep going, I can
Okay.
address this. That's fine.
What else did you have, Carter?
It's just that I have another one. This other one is the one that's jointly owned. So once you figure out how he wants you to sign it, then we'll do this one and then.
Do we need to have a motion for that one also?
You just did.
Okay.
For both of these?
For both.
So now
Okay,
we just gotta
perfect.
figure out how we're signing it.
It actually is just this one. We're good.
Okay, so then I guess this might be a question for you guys and potentially John. I will be absent from next meeting. I have to be at a work conference, so I'm asking to be potentially excused due to a work.
So they can excuse you at the next meeting.
They can excuse me at the
Yeah,
meeting.
no
Okay,
worries.
so for you guys, I will be gone for next meeting.
Yeah.
So do we need to stay in open to
No, because that just needs to be signed.
Okay.
I'll motion we adjourn.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, we are out.
Bye, Stacy.